Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, before I was business tech guy, journalist, podcaster, or IT guy, once upon a time, someone called Andy Corrigan asked me to help him run his gaming website, This Is My Joystick, and he, along with Simon and Ray Wilmot, played a big part in where I am today, and I'll always be grateful to those guys. But the bad news is that here in 2021, hosting 2 podcasts, producing 18 others, and writing for a living means I simply don't get in long enough to kick back and relax and play video games. But it is still a subject close to my heart, and I do still dabble. But when I heard Danish game developer Brightstar Studios had secured the services of video game veteran Randy Breen and how he was going to join the Ember Sword development team, I felt compelled to find out more because he has enjoyed an illustrious career in the games industry. Many will know his career began at Electronic Arts before going on to LucasArts, and during his time there, he guided many of those beloved Star Wars games from PC to console. The games I'm talking about here, of course, are Star Wars Battlefront, Star Wars Galaxy, and the BAFTA award-winning RPG Knights of the Old Republic, and that's just to name a few. But here in 2021, I wanted to find out more about how Brightstar Studios are going to harness his wealth of experience and expertise to bring Ember Sword to life. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the US so we can speak with him about Ember Sword's play-to-earn economy powered by the blockchain and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Randy Breen. I've been involved in the game business now for more than 30 years. I started my career kind of accidentally. I got I was in the Navy for 6 years on submarines, and came back to the Bay Area where I grew up, and I stumbled into a job opening for a tech role at Electronic Arts when it was still a tiny company. It was less than 100 people, and I found myself in production in a matter of months, and from there it was a 14-year journey from assistant producer up through eventually executive producer and creative director there. And it was a fantastic period because the company went from being a little startup at a time when the computer game industry was still not really taken seriously into a mass market business, and Electronic Arts was eventually thousands of people, and it was transformational. But from there, I went to LucasArts. I managed product development there through the episode 2 and 3 time periods, and that was an exciting period for me. And then from that, I went back to startups, and I've been in a number of roles since, as CEO of mobile startup game companies, for instance. And somehow that all led me to blockchain, and eventually Brightstar Studios as an advisor for them. So that's where we're at today.
Awesome. And I love origin stories like that because I think for most people I talk to on here, there was never a master plan. Everything kind of happens by accident, or the universe gives them a little gentle nudge in the right directions. And of course, Brightstar Studios was founded back in 2018. So can you tell me more about how you reinvented the usual pay-to-win mechanics and loot boxes and common to free play games, and how you reinvented all that? Because it's incredible.
Well, and I've been involved in a wide variety of games in my career, but I think the massively multiplayer games in particular have struck me as being really different in terms of their participation from the audience. And for me, that started at Electronic Arts. there were products being made at Origin, for instance, that kind of started these trends. At LucasArts, we produced a game called Galaxies. It was done with Sony Online, which was the creator of EverQuest, and a number of the members of the team from Origin came over to build that product, and so it really exposed me to the mechanics of what those games could be. My relationship to blockchain was unrelated, but it became pretty obvious that what's unique about blockchain is that it has the potential to open economic access to communities, whether that's games or any type of community, really, to allow participation if it's structured properly. And at the time, I was working with Consensus on blockchain products, and I met the team at Brightstar, and it became very clear that we shared a lot of the same values and saw the potential of what this could do to really transform those communities, and that's where we took it from.
And one of the things that really stands out is Ember Sword's play-to-earn economy, which is, again, all powered by the blockchain. But for anyone listening that are just hearing about it for the first time, can you just walk me through that economy?
There's a few layers to it, but really think about it like this. Most of these games that you buy, you don't really own anything anymore. And years ago, packaged goods industry, I mean, you can still buy games in packages to a degree, but it's not very common anymore. And at that time, you bought a game, and you could buy that game and play it and then resell it, and maybe get a little bit of your money back. But you own something physical. And in fact, if you think about it, going back to music collections, people collected these things, and there was a certain treasure associated with those collections, and there was a real sense of ownership, and that ownership has kind of gone away. And what blockchain has the potential to do is to allow those assets to be retained. As games have moved online, that ownership has evaporated. That is, your connection to those materials, it's temporary. And with blockchain, you can own some of these assets that you've collected, and then from that point on, you can do what you like. That is to say, you can keep them as mementos, but you can also potentially sell those things. And so the nature of the play to earn, it's a provocative idea. I think that on the more common end of the spectrum, it means that you can maintain those assets yourself over a long period of time and make choices about whether you keep them or not, and sell them if you choose not to. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's going to be people that really want to put effort into that, and really find, engage with the economy to the point where they can, earn money and even potentially a living. I think that the more important element here is that the community is participating in the economy of the product, and that's really important for something that's supposed to last years. And these games do last years. That is to say, from the time that they've been launched, the provided that they've been able to attract a community, they will last decades. And they have, some of these online games have lasted decades already. And so that participation becomes important as the game matures, because if the community is not engaged with the ownership of the social environment overall, the game really will struggle to maintain and satisfy the audience that it's supposed to be there to support.
And you guys have just done that. I was only reading recently that I think you've secured a $2 million funding round. So I'm curious, what do you think it is that has made investors excited about Ember Sword and Brightstar at this particular time now, especially when there's such an economic downturn everywhere?
Well, so I think that the 2 million number is interesting because that's the money that venture capital represents on the surface. But there's been a land sale that's just occurred. It's the first one was just a couple months ago, and the next one is about to launch, and that the amount of money that's going to be generated from those land sales actually completely overshadows the amount that the VCs have put into the game. That's what I mean by the community having participation in the economy, in the success, in the launch of these games. That is to say, I mean, another way to think about it is that venture capitalists have been shy about investing in entertainment because they don't really understand how to predict the market. And what community funding represents is a method of actually demonstrating what the community is interested in. Because obviously, if the interest isn't there, you can't develop the community, and you can't, if you're relying on those funds, then the game won't be made. And so it's a way for the community to communicate what they want to see come to market through their investment in those products. And the idea is that, at a minimum, they may own a portion of the game that they have economic participation in. That is to say, if you bought a piece of land and that piece of land has a potential to generate game income, then you're basically both showing your support for the game and investing your time and money into benefiting from the success of the game.
And for people listening that are on the fringe of your community or hearing about you for the first time, how does the game potentially support people to generate that income we're talking about?
Well, I just mentioned one, which is the land ownership, but it can also be the collection of game assets, things that embellish your character, things that are used to express your identity. Those assets can be collected and traded and sold, not just in the game, but outside the game. And I think that that's an important distinction about blockchain products, is that the marketplace is not restricted to the game environment. It's outside the game environment. But, one of these other examples is that artists have the potential to produce assets without being part of the game team. And those assets will have certain requirements, and they will have to meet guidelines and be approved. But those assets are then introduced into the game environment in a way that the creators themselves can benefit. And so it's an example of the community itself being directly involved in the creation of a game, both in terms of the asset creation, but also the economic production.
And the gaming community at large is incredibly passionate. So what is it you think that makes Ember Sword stand out or be unique and a little bit different from all the other titles out there?
Well, so I think that, the game community, the blockchain game community, which is still nascent, has been waiting to see a game that had really high production values and really had the potential to have these long life cycles that I'm talking about. And, I had been advocating for that when I was with Consensus. And, I think that when I met the team, at Brightstar, Ember Sword had those characteristics that I was advocating for. And I think that the community sees that. There's it's both the visual qualities and a certain uniqueness, and the implications of appeal to an audience that has high expectations based on games that they've been playing for many years in more conventional economies.
Well, in another lifetime, I did used to run a gaming website, or help run a gaming website called This Is My Joystick. And I've been fascinated on watching the industry evolve throughout the years, and especially esports and now the blockchain gaming community, which seems to be thriving. But I'm curious, as somebody right in the heart of the industry now, what are the biggest trends in gaming? Is there anything in particular that excites you?
Well, I think that player creator games that really allow the participation of the community in the activity itself, in the asset creation, in the gameplay that is actually emergent from the activity of many people interacting. These are the things that excite me the most. It's not restricted to blockchain. I think that there's other products. There's a game platform called Core that is using the Unreal Engine, for instance, and that that team allows non-game developers to basically edit game content and release mini games, if you will. And these, I say mini games because most of them are relatively limited, but some of them are quite expansive. And it creates kind of a metaverse platform, meaning that you can hop from one game environment to another game environment within the same game community. Roblox is another one, which is probably much more commonly known. So there's a variety of these, but I think that these community-generated content engines are really where the future is, because it really allows for a much broader interactivity and the potential for greater participation in the outcomes of the product.
Yeah, the metaverse stuff is incredibly exciting. You mentioned Roblox there. The stuff that NVIDIA have got planned on the horizon is just mind-blowing as well. If I know anything about the blockchain gaming community, is they do have an insatiable desire for updates and teasers for what could be waiting on the horizon. So what is Brightstar's plans for the remainder of 2021? I appreciate you can't share too much, but is there anything you can leave us with?
Well, there's a second land sale currently accepting applications for participation in the land sale, and you can get that at the website. I presume you'll have a link or something for that. And I think that's the most immediate thing. If nothing else, some of that participation can be quite modest, so it's not like you have to invest a significant amount to be part of it. But they're looking for people that are demonstrating their interest in participating in that community, and so that is the stage they're at, which is really still pretty foundational. But as the months go on, you'll see that expand into more game-related activity, and I think you'll start to see some of that come out by the end of the year.
Incredibly cool. Now, we did start our conversation today with your origin story, and I always like to finish an interview by asking, what was the soundtrack to that origin story? Is there a particular song or even gaming piece of music that has accompanied you on your journey that we can add to our playlist? Is there anything that springs to mind? So
I got myself into electronics, I think, because of music, and that motivate. I mean, that's how I ended up in the Navy. When I was in the Navy, I bought my first computer, and it was this weird collection of being kind of an electronics geek and also really loving that aspect of the culture. When I was at Electronic Arts, the first games were, on 8-bit and 16-bit consoles. And so the music was very limited. And one of the products that the product that I was most known for at Electronic Arts was a game called Road Rash, and Road Rash was originally a Sega Genesis product, one of these 16-bit games. And we had there was a music composer, Rob Hubbard, did an amazing job of creating as close as you could get to kind of a rock soundtrack for that console, but still, you are inherently limited to what you could do on those platforms. And what I witnessed through that period, Road Rash represented 10 years of my 14 years of Electronic Arts. And early 90s, the CDs were introduced, and I had an opportunity to really change the way the content was being, what content could be produced along with the game. And that resulted in an opportunity to introduce a music soundtrack for the first time. And just so happened that there was someone in Electronic Arts that had a relationship with A&M Records. That led me to realize that Soundgarden was on their roster. I was already a fan, and so I just dedicated myself to finding some way to get Soundgarden on the soundtrack for the game, and that led to a 14-song soundtrack with A&M Records that included Soundgarden. And so Outshined and Rusty Cage are the ones that really stand out in my mind, because those were the things that I was playing constantly leading up to the agreement. And then finally we did a music video that was used as vignettes throughout the game, and so that'll play through my mind for years to come, I'm sure.
Oh man, I absolutely love those two choices and the story behind it. So I'll add both of them to the Spotify playlist. But before I let you go, I will add a link for the listeners. But can you just remind everyone of where they can find you online, contact your team, join your community? What's the best starting point for everything?
The best starting point is Ember Sword is the name of the game, and you'll have a link for that, will you?
Yes.
And Brightstar Studios is the name of the company.
Perfect.
And you can find me on LinkedIn, Randy Breen on LinkedIn. And the most important thing is check out Ember Sword.
Cool. Well, I'll add those links just so people can find you nice and easily. And I think the industry has come such a long way from those old pay-to-win mechanics and loot boxes and all that stuff. And I love that your mission behind all this to develop a player-driven economy that allows gamers to earn rewards through in-game activities, including, of course, which we didn't get to talk about, the creation of unique tradable NFT items. So I'd love to get you back on another time to dig into that a little bit deeper. Excellent. But more than anything, just thanks for joining me today, Randy.
My pleasure.
So a huge thank you to Randy for talking about Ember Sword's play-to-earn economy powered by the blockchain, but doing all that in a language that everyone can understand. And it was also great hearing about that 2 million funding round and how the game potentially supports people to generate income. Cracking story. Makes me want to dive into a game now. So I'm going to treat myself to a sit down and play a few games now. So thank you for listening as always. So keep your messages coming in to techblogwriter@outlook.com. I'll return again tomorrow with another guest, but a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.